This is Week Old Cheese, and I just have a tip for you guys. It's a card I found. It's not really been used since the time of Gladiator Beasts. However, it is the top card for taking down all 4 top tier decks. This thing will stop the Heretics, it'll stop the Windups, it'll stop Rabbit Dyna, and it'll stop Inzectors. Played at a tournament recently. It shut them all down. One of the Inzectors guys, seriously, he sat there for both the turns this thing was active, doing nothing. Couldn't even activate his Pot of Dualities or Sandgan. This card is Deck Lockdown. It is one of the greatest cards for anti-meta I have ever seen. Truth be told, the fact that this thing is still legal is insane. It's not even limited, you can run it at 3. And for those of you who don't know what it does, because you didn't used to play against Gladiator Beasts or Heroes or whatever, when this card was still kind of big, is neither player, so yeah, neither, that means you too, so don't be running one of the top tiers, can add cards from their deck to their hand, or special summon cards from their deck. This card is active until your second standby phase after activation. In other words, during your second standby phase, it's destroyed. That means your opponent has to sit there with it for 2 turns, and you can do all your special summoning on the first, so you've only got to deal with it for 1. Not to mention, if you're running some Light Sworns like I am right now, or something like that, just put this damned thing in. It really doesn't even slow you down. Your opponent, it's just terrible for them. There's like nothing they can do. Nothing to get more consistency. They can MST or Heavy Storm or stuff like that, obviously. But think of it like this. That's going to draw out those MSTs and that Heavy Storm. And say you know they have a Heavy Storm they're sitting on. Activate this thing. Keep a Starlight Road face down. They're going to go a little stir crazy and use that Heavy Storm. Guarantee it. But the point is, this is a very powerful card. Stops Heretics from getting all those normal monsters and exceeds summoning into that King of Autumn. And if they have King of Autumn, stops them from using his effect. Like, they can get normal monster from their hand, but how often do they do that? Rabbit Dyna stops Rabbit, stops the Rescue Rabbit, you know? It's like, they can banish him, but they can't get the 2 monsters. Stops the Sandgan, which is really nice. It stops, what's her name? Tour Guide. Stops her too. It'll also stop Windups from using their, what's his name? Zenmighty, I think. I'm not really big on Windup. Don't pay much attention to them. They've never really given me that much trouble. I don't know why. It's like, if you still got a hand, unless they like do the entire loop, if you still got those freaking 2 cards and they didn't get a Pot of Avarice, you're still good, you know? You should be anyway. They're pretty easy to beat over. But point is, this thing, it will literally stop so much. Like think of a deck. Think of a deck that doesn't like doing something this card will stop. Chances are, if you're not running top tier, then you're thinking of all those decks that are giving you trouble. And just think of it like this. Inzectors, you might be thinking, well, what about Hornet? What if they just Hornet pop it? Well, here's the thing. If they already have Hornet, you're screwed. But most of the time, they won't have Hornet already. You activate this first turn, they're going to have to hopefully draw into that Hornet. And by that time, you could have freaking blasted them out of the water. Like, seriously, have you ever noticed that about Inzectors? They search the Hornet most of the time. They won't just draw into it and be all ready. Which, don't get me wrong, they can. But it's probably 3 cards out of the 40. Make that 35 because your first draws. 34 because your next one. But the point is, Deck Lockdown will shut them all down. And if you're running DD Crow and Transmigration Prophecy and that, to pretty much send Hornets back into the deck or just banish them outright, which is less recommended because of Leviar these days. I'd really recommend using Transmogrification Prophecy. It hits everything pretty hard. Like seriously, 2 cards back. And if you, or if your opponent doesn't have to, return some of your spells traps that got used up and put them back in your deck. Say you've already used a Heavy Storm or a Dark Hole and you might want it again. Use Transmogrification, return it back to your deck. And Pesky Monster as well for your opponent, just in case, gets MST'd before you want to use it. But yeah, anyway, back to Deck Lockdown. Seriously, if you're playing the game these days, and you ever plan on dueling top tier decks without using one yourself, this thing is what you're looking for. And this has been Week Old Cheese.